The day I heard the name of Carlos Walters was the day my blood boiled. He was the leader of a notorious gang known as the Bloodhounds, the ruthless gang that ran the prison like their personal kingdom, and he was the one who ordered the hit on my brother, Nate Nelson. My name is Tommy Lane Nelson, and this is how I died. Nate had been doing a short stint for a few stupid choices, boosting cars to pay off some debts, drug trafficking, and I believe he had a few kidnapping charges, but he never made it out alive. They found him in the basement of the prison, almost lifeless. They attempted to rush him to the hospital, but he died on the way there. The life beaten out of him by those animals. I was already doing time in a different facility, a medium security place a few towns over. When I got the news, I felt something in me snap. I wasn't the same after that. The way I saw it, I had nothing left to lose. So I made a plan. The kind you only come up with when you've got a singular burning purpose. Revenge. Started causing trouble. Enough to get noticed, but not so much that I'd end up in solitary forever. The goal was to get transferred to where Carlos was locked up. If I could get there, I'd have a shot at taking him down. It worked. A few months later, they shipped me off to the hellhole where Carlos held court. As soon as I stepped off that transport bus, I could feel the difference. This place was darker, meaner, like the walls themselves had soaked up the violence and despair of the men inside. The guards didn't care about keeping order. They just made sure we didn't riot too often. Inside, it was the Bloodhounds' territory. They were main gang around this area. They had the most numbers and were known to be vicious, so other gangs didn't usually want to start trouble with them. I kept my head down at first, biding my time, getting the lay of the land. I knew better than to rush in blindly. Carlos was surrounded by his crew at all times, and they didn't take kindly to strangers. But I had to get close to him, had to find a way to catch him alone. Every night I lay in my bunk, picturing how it would go down, imagining the look in his eyes when he realized who I was and why I was there. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. One of Carlos's men, a guy named Rico, was running a little gambling racket on the side. I made sure I won big one night, enough to catch his attention. We got into a heated argument, and before long, fists were flying. That was my in. Carlos liked to see who was tough, who could handle themselves. After that, I was on his radar. Over the next few weeks, I earned their trust, or at least I thought I did. I became one of them, part of their crew. But all the while, I was watching, waiting for the right moment. Carlos had to pay for what he did to Nate. The rage inside me was like a fire, burning hotter with every passing day. Finally, the night came. Carlos liked to hold court in a back room of the old laundry building, a place where the guards never ventured. It was just him and a few of his closest guys, and they'd get drunk on contraband booze, laughing about whatever misery they'd inflicted that week. I managed to slip in with them, a knife hidden under my shirt stolen from the kitchen as the night wore on. The others got sloppy, but Carlos stayed sharp, his eyes cold and calculating even as he drank. I waited until he was alone, telling the others I needed to take a leak. They didn't care. They were too far gone to notice much of anything. When I came back, it was just me and Carlos. I walked up to him, my hand gripping the knife so tightly, I thought my knuckles would split. He looked at me, suspicion creeping into his eyes. "What's your game, man?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "My game?" I said, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside me. "This is for Nate Nelson." I saw the flash of recognition in his eyes just before I lunged. But Carlos wasn't easy prey. He moved fast, faster than I'd expected, and we ended up grappling, the knife between us. He was strong, but I had the fury of vengeance on my side. I managed to get the upper hand, driving the blade deep into his gut. He gasped, his eyes wide with shock. With blinding rage, stab, 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 and stab, I stabbed him a total of 34 times. But instead of fear, I saw something else, a kind of acceptance. He looked at me, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, and smiled. "Too late," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. "Already paid for it, in full." Confusion froze me for a split second, but then I heard it, a soft rustling sound behind me. I turned, and there he was, cloaked in shadow, his face pale and gaunt. The Grim Reaper, At least that's what they called him in this place. Some said he was death itself, others just a man who'd lost his humanity long ago. But whatever he was Carlos's insurance policy. Before I could react, I felt something, a burning cold that spread through my body. I stumbled back, the room spinning. I looked down and saw the blood soaking through my shirt, pooling on the floor. Carlos laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. You think you're the first? He's been waiting for you. I dropped to my knees, the knife slipping from my hand. The Grim Reaper stepped closer, his eyes dead and empty. I wanted to fight, to get up, to finish what I'd started, but my strength was fading fast. I could feel the life draining out of me, the world going dark around the edges. As I lay there, gasping for breath, I realized the truth. Revenge had consumed me, driven me to this moment, but in the end, it was all for nothing. Carlos would die, sure, but so would I, and nothing would bring Nate back. The last thing I saw was the Grim Reaper's cold, lifeless eyes staring down at me, as if he was bored of collecting another soul. And then there was nothing, just darkness, cold and absolute.